The doorbell rang at precisely 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. Nothing unusual about a doorbell ringing, sure, but this one cracked my world like a crowbar to the ribs. I was halfway through grading a stack of sophomore-lit essays, my red pen still warm in my hand, when I got up to answer. Monica was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with all the grace of a serial killer, each slice echoing like a countdown. 20 years of marriage, and I still flinched at that sound. At the door, a kid. 18, maybe. Lanky. Nervous. Eyes like mine, which was unsettling because I didn't recall lending my DNA to anyone outside the marriage. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Mr. Keller," he said, voice cracking like puberty hadn't gotten the memo. "Adam Keller? That's me." He stuck out his hand. "I'm Eli Brenner. I'm your son." Now, I'm not a man who startles easily. 20 years of teaching high school physics taught me to keep a straight face through just about anything. But that one knocked the wind out of me without laying a hand. Jessica Brenner. College. A summer fling. 3 weeks, max. The name slammed back into my brain like an overdue bill. "That's not possible," I said, but even as I said it, something inside me shifted. A flicker of something I couldn't explain. He mentioned Jessica. The University of Michigan. January 8, 2008. Monica's voice cut through the moment like a buzzsaw. "Adam? Who's at the door?" She stepped beside me. "Saw Eli." Heard the words. "He says he's my son." The dish towel she was holding hit the floor like it had fainted. "What?" she hissed. We went through the motions. The photo, the folded birth certificate, the silence that screamed between us. I asked where Jessica was. "Dead. Cancer. Last year." Her final wish? For Eli to find me. Monica's face twisted, contorted, then settled on the look every man learns to fear. Cold, calculated fury. "I want you out," she said. Not yelling. Not begging. Just done. "Call your son tomorrow. But tonight, get out." I packed. Not out of guilt. Out of necessity. Because once a woman tells you to leave in that voice, sticking around becomes an act of stupidity, not courage. I checked into a Holiday Inn across town. Room 214. The same number Eli had given me, but I didn't knock on his door. Not yet. I needed time. Clarity. Maybe a miracle. The room was beige and quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you question every decision you've ever made. I turned on the TV. Turned it back off. Read Monica's text. "Please don't come back." I sat in silence. A man unraveling. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silently. Tomorrow, I'd meet the kid again. Today, I was still trying to remember who I was before the doorbell rang. The next morning, I knocked on room 214. Eli opened the door wearing the same hoodie, same wary expression. "Didn't think you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't," I replied. But I figured running wouldn't solve much. He stepped aside. The room smelled faintly of hotel soap and someone trying too hard to make themselves invisible. His duffel bag was neatly packed in the corner. The bed he hadn't slept in was still smooth. "You want coffee?" he asked. "I want answers," I said. "But sure. Coffee helps." He poured 2 cups from the machine that all hotel rooms pretend makes coffee. I took one, burned my tongue, and sat on the corner of the bed. "I need a DNA test," I said. He didn't blink. "Yeah, I figured. I brought a kit." He handed me a box, mail order, still sealed. This kid had come prepared, like he'd planned for disbelief. "I didn't know about you," I told him. "I believe you," he said. "Mom said you transferred schools and never called. She never told me she was pregnant." "She did. You just didn't get the message." There it was again, that quiet, clinical heartbreak. The kind that doesn't raise its voice. We swabbed, sealed the kit, and he handed it to me. "You mail it," he said. "That way, you'll believe the results." He turned to the window. "So, do you have other kids?" "No," I said. "Just you, apparently." A silence sat between us like a third person. Not awkward, not warm, just real. "You married?" he asked. I said. "Until about 9:15 last night." He winced. "Sorry. Not your fault," I replied. But it sure lit the match. We made small talk. He told me about Jessica, how she used to hum when she cooked, how she refused to buy furniture that didn't come from a second-hand store. I remembered the humming. I remembered her laugh. And suddenly, the years didn't feel so far away. When I got back to my car, Monica's lawyer had already texted me. Any communication must now go through legal counsel. Efficient. That was always her brand. I dropped the DNA kit in a FedEx box and stood there for a while, hand on the edge of the bin, like I was mailing away the last piece of who I thought I was. Inside that envelope? One swab. But it held the answer to everything. Whether I was a father, whether I was a liar, or just collateral damage. And either way, I wasn't going back to the house. Not yet. 3 days passed. Long ones. I stayed in the hotel, spent my mornings pretending I liked the free eggs, and my nights staring at the ceiling like it owed me answers. Eli texted once a day. Just small stuff. Hey, let me know when the results come in. He didn't push. Didn't beg. More maturity in those texts than most adults I knew. Meanwhile, Monica went quiet. Legally quiet. Her sister emailed me, "You need to respect her space." Like I'd kicked down a door instead of just opening one. On Thursday, the results came. Positive. 99.999%. The kind of number that doesn't leave room for maybe. I sat there staring at the screen, the PDF glowing like a verdict. You were the father, but without the game show music. Just cold, scientific certainty. I texted Eli. He wrote back 2 words. Knew it. I met him at a diner near the mall. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who calls everyone sweetheart, even when they're clearly not. He ordered pancakes. I just nursed a coffee. You okay? He asked. Still adjusting, I said. He didn't press. Just poured syrup with the calm of someone who's had to be the adult in too many rooms. You know, he said eventually, I didn't come to blow up your life. I just wanted to know where I came from. I nodded. Well, now you do. And for what it's worth, you got your mom's eyes. But that sarcasm? That's all me. He smirked, just a little. After we ate, I walked him back to his rental car. It was a rusted Civic that coughed when it started. Still, it had a dignity to it. Like Eli himself. Nothing flashy. Just solid. You want to meet again? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Just sat there, fingers on the wheel. Yeah, he said finally. I think I would. Then he drove off. And I stood in that parking lot feeling like someone had handed me a second chance I didn't remember asking for, but might actually want. I was just turning to leave when my phone buzzed. Monica. Not a call. A photo. Of her. With someone. A man I didn't recognize. Standing in my living room. Smiling. The caption? Meet Daniel. He'll be staying for a while. No explanation. No apology. Just a photo and a name like I was a stranger she was updating for courtesy. And that's when it clicked. I'd been the one scrambling. Apologizing. Trying to make sense of a life that had clearly moved on without me. Monica wasn't just mad. She was done. She'd been done for a while. And I was finally catching up. I didn't reply to Monica's message. Not because I didn't have words, but because none of the ones I had were polite. And I'd already lost the house. I wasn't going to lose the high ground. Instead, I stared at that photo. Monica in the doorway. Our doorway. Hair done. Makeup fresh. The same living room where we once danced to Sinatra on a Tuesday night just because the power was out and her phone was dead. Now it had Daniel in it. His smile was too confident. Like he knew I was watching. Like he was taking a victory lap on a track I paved. I didn't know if he was the rebound, the reason, or the replacement, but he was standing where I used to, and that was enough. Meet Daniel, she said. No last name. No background. Just Daniel. Well, game on. The next morning, I met with a lawyer. His office smelled like old books and quiet rage. He shook my hand with practiced calm and offered me water I didn't want. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. The kid. The test. The suitcase. And Daniel. He didn't blink. Just jotted notes on a yellow pad like my life was a particularly complicated grocery list. Any assets? He asked. House. 2 cars. Joint savings. A retirement account she hasn't touched. He nodded. You're going to want to freeze anything joint. She already lawyered up, I said. Beat me to the punch. His pen paused mid-scribble. Then we file. Today. He slid the paperwork across the desk like a bartender serving something bitter. I signed. Not because I wanted to end the marriage, but because she already had, and I was just catching up to the wreckage. By Friday, Eli and I were texting regularly. He sent me a photo of a half-burnt grilled cheese he'd made for dinner. I sent back a picture of motel eggs that looked suspiciously like insulation foam. He laughed, said we should compare disasters in person sometime. So we did. We met at a bookstore cafe, his choice, not mine. Turns out the kid reads Vonnegut and Bukowski, drinks black coffee, and hates decaf with the kind of passion usually reserved for politics or pineapple on pizza. We talked about music. I told him about the band I played in during college, the Hypotheticals. He said that was the worst band name he'd ever heard. I told him I agreed. We lasted 6 months, one breakup, and a garage fire. It felt normal, real. It felt like something I hadn't had in a long time. At one point, Eli leaned back and asked, "So what happens now? With everything?" I stirred my coffee. Good question. Because the truth is, I didn't have an answer. I was floating. A man with no house, no marriage, and one unexpected son who somehow made me feel more anchored than anything else in the last year. But I had clarity. Finally. And as it turns out, that's when you get dangerous. Later that night, I drove past the house. No intention of going in. Just needed to see it. Daniel's truck was in the driveway. My driveway. A shiny Ford with the kind of rims that say, "I've never hauled anything in my life." The porch light was on. My porch light. But the bulb had been changed. It used to be warm, soft yellow. Now it was the cold blue kind that belongs outside a dentist's office. Small thing. But small things add up. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. Back to the motel. Back to the smell of musty carpet and institutional soap. And I opened my laptop. Started documenting everything. Finances. Dates. Messages. Monica had moved on like it was a dress rehearsal she'd practiced for months. But I hadn't. And now? I was wide awake. Saturday morning, I got a text from her. Not Monica. Her sister. "Hey, just FYI. Daniel's been around a while. Thought you should know." I stared at the screen. Around a while. So not the rebound. Not the backup. The bench warmer she'd been warming up for months. And suddenly, things clicked. The distance. The cold dinners. The fake migraines. All of it. Daniel wasn't new. He was planned. And my eviction? That was just phase 2. I didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. I just opened my notes app and typed. Monica plus Daniel, overlap confirmed. Because if she wanted this to be clinical, I could match her stride for stride. Sunday, Eli and I went for a walk around the lake. He skipped stones. I watched the water. At one point, he asked, "Did you love her?" Monica. I said, "Yeah." I thought about that one. Long and hard. Finally, I said, "Yeah. Once. Deeply. Maybe too deeply." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Then what happened? She got tired, I said. Of me. Of the life. Of folding into the same routine. So she traded the old record for something shinier. He didn't answer. Just threw another stone. It skipped 3 times before sinking. Kind of like my marriage. As we walked back to the parking lot, I got a call. Private number. I answered. A woman's voice, clipped and cautious. "Mr. Keller? This is Lauren Gray. I'm an investigator working for your wife's legal team." I stopped walking. "Go on. I've been asked to provide a report on your financial standing. I'm required to notify you." I smiled. "Lauren," I said, "you can tell Monica I'm documenting everything. Every receipt. Every message. Every little timeline crack she left behind." A pause. Then, "I'm just the messenger." "I know," I said. "But do me a favor?" "Yes. Tell her the game's not over." I hung up. Eli raised an eyebrow. "Everything good?" "Not yet," I said. "But it will be. Because Monica might have written me off. But I was done playing checkers. This was chess now. And I had just moved my queen. I never liked games. Card games bored me. Board games made me feel like a trained monkey. Even Monopoly, what kind of sadist invented a pastime where the best-case scenario is being a pretend landlord? But this was different. This was war with rules dressed like paperwork. This was legal chess. And Monica had made her opening move. Now it was my turn. I started with a spreadsheet. Always been a numbers guy. Even taught basic algebra before literature stole my heart in the last 2 decades of my life. Column A, joint assets. Column B, her purchases over the last 6 months. Column C, any transaction that included the word spa, lounge, or Daniel. There were many. Too many. Turns out Daniel had expensive taste. And Monica? She was happy to foot the bill using the joint card she forgot we still shared. A leather weekend bag from Nordstrom. 2 tickets to something at the Civic Center. A hotel in Charleston during that work retreat back in May. She never worked in Charleston. Funny, that. I printed it all. Labeled it Timeline of Misuse. Gave it a nice plastic cover. Professional. Clean. Like a polite slap to the face. The next time I saw my lawyer, I handed it to him without a word. He flipped through it, page by page, then let out a low whistle. Most people don't come this prepared, he said. I smiled. I used to grade essays for a living. I know how to cite my sources. He nodded slowly. This'll help. Good, I said. Because I'm not here to burn her life down. A pause. I'm just here to make sure she doesn't salt the earth on her way out. That night, I called Eli. He picked up on the second ring. Thought you'd be out winning custody of the dog, he said. No dog, I replied. Just a house filled with memories and a man named Daniel who trims his beard with a Bluetooth app. Sounds like a keeper. He's someone's, I said. Wasn't supposed to be mine. Eli laughed. We made plans to grab dinner. Real dinner. Something not microwaved or motel wrapped. I picked the place, a barbecue joint with real smoke and the kind of napkins that look like old rags. We sat in a booth with initials carved into the wood. He got brisket. I got ribs. We didn't talk about Monica. Not at first. We talked about his classes. His mom's cooking. The time he accidentally set a toaster on fire trying to impress a girl who liked DIY vibes. Then, somewhere between the cornbread and the second round of sweet tea, he asked, Do you think she regrets it? I knew who he meant. Jessica. I said. He nodded. She was 19, I said. Scared. Alone. I think she did what she thought was right. Even if it wasn't. He sat back. She used to talk about you. Not a lot. But always in this, faraway way. Far away. Yeah. Like remembering a dream. Not a person. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't. I just nodded. Sometimes the silence says more. Back at the motel, I found an envelope slid under the door. No return address. Inside? A single photo. Monica and Daniel at a farmer's market, standing close, smiling like they'd invented vegetables. Her hand on his back. His fingers hooked in the loop of her jeans. And written on the back, in Monica's handwriting? Since you're documenting everything. She had seen it. No doubt about it. This wasn't a woman unraveling. This was a woman enjoying the view from the wreckage. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it in half and slid it into the file labeled Character Evidence. Not because I planned to use it, but because she needed to know. I wasn't blinking anymore. 2 days later, we were both scheduled for mediation. The room had the charm of a dentist waiting room and the tension of a funeral where no one liked the guest of honor. Monica showed up in heels and the same perfume she wore when we used to host dinner parties. Daniel didn't come, but his scent lingered in her smugness. Her lawyer was young. Sharp suit. Too much gel. He looked like he practiced smirks in the mirror. Mine was older. Wore tweed. Brought a briefcase that looked like it had outlived at least 3 marriages. Monica didn't look at me. Not really. She glanced. But not the way you glance at someone you used to love. More like the way you check a rearview mirror before changing lanes. The mediator cleared her throat. Let's begin with assets. My lawyer opened the folder. Page 1. Here, he said calmly, is a documented list of every expenditure made by Mrs. Keller using joint funds post-separation. Note the dates. Note the purchases. Note Mr. Daniel. Her lawyer tried to object. My lawyer silenced him with a single raised finger. We're not attacking character, he said. Just timelines. Monica looked at me then. Really looked. And for a second, just a flicker, I saw it. Not regret. But worry. Not because she was caught. But because I had changed. I wasn't stammering. Wasn't apologizing. Wasn't asking for anything. I was stating facts. And facts don't beg. That night, I got a text. From her. Not Daniel. Not her sister. Monica. It read, You're not who I thought you were. And for once, she was absolutely right. Monica's text hung on my screen like a dare. You're not who I thought you were. I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I cared, but because I was trying to figure out what version of me she thought she married and what version she thought I'd stay after she kicked me out. The man who folds laundry on Sunday nights, clips coupons, and triple checks the oven before bed? He was gone. Not burned out. Not broken. Just replaced by someone who'd learned how to swing back. The next morning, I emailed the mediator. Simple, direct, and dressed in bullet points. No interest in reconciling. No intention of returning to the house. Full transparency on financial records, including irregularities. Joint custody request withdrawn, because there were no children. But I did add one clause at the end. I request exclusive rights to the antique bookshelf I restored with my own hands over the course of 3 months while recovering from shoulder surgery. If she wants everything else, she can have it. But not that. I know. A bookshelf. But that thing? It was mine. blood, splinters, and a lot of YouTube tutorials. It stood in our study for years, holding books she never read and memories she never appreciated. And now? It would be the one thing I'd take with me. Proof that I could build something lasting, even if the marriage wasn't. Eli called later that day. "Hey," he said. "You free?" "For you? Always." He laughed. "Got time to meet someone?" "Who?" "My girlfriend." I paused, not because I was surprised, but because this was the first time he'd called me for something. Not to clarify, not to ask questions, but to share. "Name the place," I said. "We met at a park. One of those places with too many geese and a walking path that never quite forms a full circle." Her name was Lily. She wore combat boots and a smile that could knock over buildings. She shook my hand with confidence. "So you're the infamous Adam." "Guilty," I said, although the infamy's still up for debate. "You raised a good one," she said, nodding toward Eli. "I can't take credit," I replied. "I'm just arriving at the end of a very long movie." He says otherwise. And just like that, I was part of something again. Not a family, not yet, but something adjacent. Something warmer than courtrooms and text message threats. We walked, talked, laughed. The geese scattered like they owed us money. At one point, Eli walked ahead, giving us space. Lily turned to me and said, "He talks about you like you're a lighthouse." "A lighthouse?" "Yeah, something that's just there. Steady, quiet, but real." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Well, I've been called worse." That evening, I got another message from Monica. A voice memo. Because, apparently, texting wasn't theatrical enough anymore. I hit play. Her voice came through calm, clipped, deliberate. "Adam, I just wanted to say, I don't know who you think you're trying to be right now. But this game? This new version of you? It's not you. You were always the safe one. The one who didn't make waves. And I think, deep down, you know that's who you'll be again when this phase wears off." I listened twice. Not because I questioned myself, but because it was fascinating how someone could try to gaslight you after they left. Monica didn't want me back. She just wanted me small, predictable, folded neatly back into the corner of her life where I used to wait quietly. I didn't respond, just archived it. Silence was becoming my favorite kind of power. The next week, my lawyer called. "Quick update," he said. "She's asking for the lake house." "The one we co-signed for her sister?" "Yep. She's not even on the deed. She says you verbally agreed to surrender all interest." I laughed. "Tell her my silence isn't consent." "Already did," he replied. "Also, she's now contesting the bookshelf." My jaw tensed. "She doesn't even read." "I know," he said, "which is probably why she wants it." I nodded slowly. "Then we fight for it." And just like that, the bookshelf became the hill I was willing to metaphorically die on. Not out of spite, out of principle. Later that night, I packed up the last of my things at the motel. The receptionist, a kind woman with too many bracelets, handed me a cookie on the way out. "Starting over?" she asked. "Something like that," I said. "Well, honey, don't let anyone tell you starting over is a weakness." I smiled. "Not anymore." I moved into a small apartment with bad lighting and excellent silence. First thing I did? Set up the bookshelf. Ran my hand over the edges. Tightened every screw. Even added a new coat of polish. It stood there in the corner like an old friend who never asked questions. Like a part of me that hadn't quit. And I thought about Monica. About her voice, her perfume, her obsession with appearances. And I realized, the person she wanted me to stay? That man never stood a chance. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being her prop. And started being my own person. There's something eerie about returning to a house that no longer belongs to you, but still knows your name. Every creak in the hardwood is a memory. Every dent in the wall, a conversation you can still hear. The smell is different now, less homey, more cologne and sage candles. Daniel had clearly made himself at home. Or Monica had cleared the space for him. Same difference. I was only there because I'd been summoned. Monica's attorney had requested a final walkthrough of the property for inventory reconciliation. I knew what it meant. Monica wanted one last chance to flaunt her newfound domestic bliss. Probably thought I'd stumble in like a bitter ex, jealous and hollow. She forgot I'd already burned through bitterness and come out clean on the other side. Daniel answered the door. Button-down shirt, smug grin, and the kind of handshake you give a guy when you've rehearsed meeting him in your mirror 5 times. "Adam," he said. "Thanks for coming." "Daniel," I replied. "You're taller in the photo Monica sent me." He blinked. Monica appeared behind him. Hair curled. lips painted red like she was attending a gala instead of a glorified garage sale. "This won't take long," she said, not bothering with hello. I stepped in. The couch was different. Sleek, minimal. Probably chosen because it photographed well, not because it was comfortable. The bookshelf was gone. I smiled to myself. Victory, however small, still counted. We moved room to room. She pointed out the new rugs. The statement lamp. A painting of a tree that looked like it had given up on itself halfway through blooming. "I believe this blender was a wedding gift from your cousin," she said in the kitchen. "No," I said. "It was a housewarming gift from your coworker, Rebecca." "You sure?" "Monica," I said flatly. "I can name everyone who came to that party, including the guy you flirted with while I was cleaning shrimp cocktail off your dress." Daniel coughed into his hand. I didn't flinch. We reached the garage. That's when it happened. Tucked in the corner, covered by an old sheet like a forgotten ghost, was the antique desk I'd restored the summer before our 10th anniversary. The one she told me was too heavy to keep. The one she insisted we donate. "I thought you gave that away," I said. "I changed my mind," she replied too quickly. I stepped toward it. "Adam," she warned. But I was already pulling back the sheet. And there it was, the inscription. Under the drawer. Where I'd carved it by hand. M plus A equals home. Except someone had tried to sand it out. It was faint now. Faded. But still there. Like the truth. Like regret. Like me. "I want it," I said. She crossed her arms. "It's mine. I built it. We co-owned the garage when you built it." I stared at her. "You think this is about furniture?" Daniel finally spoke up. "Maybe this isn't the place." "Stay out of it," we both said in unison. He backed up like a man who just realized his girlfriend's ex isn't finished fighting. "I'll trade you," I said. "The TV. The grill. That pretentious lamp in the living room." She hesitated. "Why this desk?" "Because," I wanted to say, "it's the last thing I made before we stopped talking. Before we started resenting each other in silence. Before we became two people sharing groceries instead of dreams." But I didn't say that. Instead, I smiled. Because I still believe in craftsmanship. I left with the desk. Loaded it in a borrowed truck. No help from Daniel, of course. As I tied it down, Monica stood on the porch. "You know this won't change anything," she said. "You're right," I replied. "That's the beautiful part." She didn't ask what I meant. I think she knew. Back at my apartment, the desk took up half the wall. Didn't match anything else? Didn't need to. I ran my fingers along the edge. Felt the grooves. The memories. The lessons. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote. Nothing fancy. Just a journal entry. Old school pen and paper. Something about how healing doesn't always announce itself. It just shows up in little victories in solid wood. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. "Eli." A text. "You around this weekend? I want to show you something." I replied, "Always." We met at a community center the next day. Nothing glamorous. Concrete walls. Bad lighting. But the energy inside? Pure gold. Eli walked me through a side door and into a half-empty room. There were guitars lined against one wall. A few stools. A whiteboard that read, "Open mic prep. Saturdays 3 p.m. "I'm starting a music group," he said. "Well, sort of. Helping kids who don't have anyone at home who listens. Thought maybe they'd like someone who knows what it's like to be overlooked." I looked at him. Really looked. "You came up with this?" He shrugged. "Needed to build something. Thought maybe you'd want to help." I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then I smiled. "Only if I get to name the band." He laughed. "Not the hypotheticals again." "No," I said. "Something better." That night, I drove home with the windows down. Wind in my face. The smell of someone grilling 2 buildings over. A song I didn't recognize playing on the radio. And I thought about Monica. About Daniel. About every version of me she thought I'd stay. And I realized something. She didn't ruin me. She revealed me. And in doing so, gave me back to myself. The envelope came on a Tuesday. No return address. Just my name in cursive I hadn't seen in 18 years. Jessica's handwriting. Inside, a letter, yellowed, creased, and dated 5 months before she died. It started simply. "Dear Adam, if you're reading this, Eli found you. I hope he's braver than I ever was." I sat down before I got halfway through. She'd written it when the chemo was bad. When she knew the clock was louder than the silence. The letter wasn't long, but every line felt like a sigh she'd been holding since college. "I didn't tell you because I was afraid. You were so young. You had ambition and structure and this relentless goodness about you. I thought I'd ruin that. She hadn't, but someone else had tried. I folded the letter and placed it on the desk, the one I fought to keep. It belonged there. A story I hadn't finished reading. A chapter one hadn't known I'd started. The mediation was over. Official. Cold. Sealed in manila folders and a handshake that felt more like a funeral than a settlement. Monica got the house. The car. The mutual friends. I got the desk. A small bank account. And the full rights to walk away clean. Daniel didn't come this time. Probably busy polishing the furniture he didn't buy. Monica didn't say much, but as we stood outside the building, two people who used to know each other better than anyone, I noticed she looked tired. Not sad. Not sorry. Just worn down by her own performance. I thought I'd be happier, she said. I thought you'd be better at goodbyes, I replied. She didn't flinch. We didn't hug. She turned toward her car. I turned toward my life. It happened on a Sunday. Cloudy. Cool. The kind of afternoon that pretends it's waiting for rain. I was in the garage of the new place, smaller, simpler, entirely mine, polishing the desk again. A ritual now. Not just woodwork. Reflection. Then came the knock. Not at the door. At the side gate. I opened it to find Daniel. Not smug. Not smiling. Just standing there like a man carrying something too heavy to admit. I just wanted to say something, he began. I waited. She's not what I thought, he said. And you handled all this better than I would have. I nodded once. That's the thing about storms. People assume the loudest ones do the most damage. He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean some storms don't scream, I said. They just erode. Slowly. Quietly. Until the foundation's gone. He looked down. Take care of her, I added. Or don't. That part's none of my business anymore. He left without shaking my hand. Good instinct. Later that night, I texted Eli. Dinner this week? He replied instantly. Yes. Always. I walked over to the desk, slid open the drawer, pulled out Jessica's letter and read it one last time. Then I lit a match. Not out of anger. Out of peace. The fire was small, contained, but in that moment, it felt like the end of something real, and the start of something better. Not revenge. Not vindication. Just the quiet, sturdy kind of freedom you earn by surviving what tried to unmake you. And just like that, the chapter closed. But not with a bang. With clarity. And a door I chose to walk through on my own.